So this is a digital representation of the tips number 4 and 5 as requested. Um, so the number 4 is all about having both anti-speedrun and countermeasures that are designed for people who do play super slowly. So if you see people come up like this and they're just like, they're checking every little corner and stuff like that, typically speaking, like there aren't a lot of ways of dealing with that, right? You only really have two options to deal with super methodical players. You could just spam them in a way that they don't have a way to deal with. You'll see this a lot. They're called kill boxes usually. Well, not necessarily. You don't have to have a kill box in order to deal with that, but that's the most common way. Is you'll get a situation when you come over here and like there'll be a million fucking things around, and there are ways of dealing with that, like kill boxes, but that's not in this video. Um, but one of the ways that people handle methodical players is just by throwing in inordinate amount of traps to them that activate at once. It's beyond layering. It's more like, I just throw everything at you, and you have no chance of avoiding it unless you have a shield, basically. It's just a shield check. It won't work really more than once or twice against any particular player. It's just something to try to guarantee, I guess, at 1.5 KD, probably. Um, that being said, there are a few things you can do that is especially important that I recommend doing, because it'll catch like normal players and methodical as well, as severely punish speedrun. And so there's a couple traps that are really good at this. First one is going to be the bomber. So what you do is you have him with chaos bombs if you have it. Otherwise, not a big deal. And you put it on a slope like this. This is like a really good idea. This helps if like you have um, another matching slope like over here. This makes that particularly effective. However, you don't have to have that. That's not required. I have plenty of maps without that. And what will happen is this angle is generally pretty important, but it will fire enough where some will stay on here and bounce up. So if they try to jump, they get hit. It'll come down, and I like to have follow-up blocks around, like this. And believe it or not, the RV can still come by here. But this makes trap rooms, like with bombs, a lot more deadly. And so they have a lot less room to work with. And on top of that, you also have potential to have like sneaky second wave traps in addition to that. The other option is incinerator at an angle. The idea of this is, again, these aren't first wave. These aren't second wave. These are first wave. What they're designed to do is just if someone is not caring and just running by, it's designed to make it so if they're trying to just not ignore your base, this will punish them. Um, Incinerator and the bomb, and particularly depending on your base design, if you have a slope that goes down into your base, it's much easier to punish speedrunning because chaos bombs can catch up very easily. Other than that, if you're in the middle of the base, this design right here with the up and down slope works really well. You'll see this occasionally probably in your own raids. You've probably seen it before. And you can use this actually in like, you can actually layer it this way if you wanted to as well. But the incinerator, if you notice at this angle, it can catch a lot. And if you have the upgrade, it can go like, I believe, 4 blocks, I want to say. It is really strong, has very good area denial, can fire multiple times. It's probably one of the best traps, if not the best trap in the game by far. Another trick you can do is to catch a methodical player. And there's not many of these, but there are a couple. I really like this. What this is, if you notice, it's a Holo cube. Now, most of the time, if you come up here, if the Holo cube's like right here, here's what'll happen. You'll come up, or you'll come up, it'll break, and guess what? They're immediately suspicious. Then they just go like this, pop, it's bad. So what this does is, if you have this right here with this on it, the Eagle Eye, the way it works, it extends the block range of the activation by 1. It doesn't work on half blocks. So if you come up here, unless you jump, it really won't activate. And so all the time I've noticed it won't even activate even if you jump. You literally have to be like right up here, it'll activate, and that suddenly whatever trap you have up there can go. And the bomber is really good for that too, because this is a very nice even spread, and it's really hard to deal with. Particularly if you pair it with like because the only way they have to go is up, right? Particularly if you pair it with like a impaler up here, which is really cheap. You can can get a kill that way as well. Um, Now, some of the strategies I have mentioned, I actually don't have the ability to demonstrate, simply because I don't own all the raids. I have seen them mark, though. That being said, it doesn't mean that it necessarily can't be patched or anything like that, so you always want to keep that in mind. Um, Next way of dealing with methodicals, I'm sure as you know, is you've seen this before, is you'll come into your base and there'll be some fucking head, they'll come around and loop around. So the easiest way you do this is you have a lot of control of how you set this. So your guard will follow your movements exactly, right? So you can make him go like this, kind of stuff. The idea is just to waste time until he gets to where he needs to be. Now, there are a couple of disadvantages with this. There are some advantages and disadvantages, so there definitely some pros and cons. So the pro is that it's very low compared to like the cost of other setups. It's very low. So all you really need is the guard, and then have him like around the corner of the base, and just have him take like a long way around. Um, that will catch some players by, of course, and especially if they've done your base a few times, they may try to skip him or they may forget about him, and you can get another quick kill. Um, that being said, it's something that players like, even not even a week into release or whatever, right? They already expect this shit. You see it like every fucking game. So, normally what happens when someone comes in, the first thing they do is they'll come up to like the sides of your base and get a look around for a couple reasons. One, they're looking for the tomb, which you should always make consistent with your players, by the way, or they're looking for any guards laying around. I caught so many guards just hanging around that are able to shoot in the back and then have no penalty whatsoever. Um, because a lot of the time, if the way they have their trap set up, if they don't have that guard coming in the back, a lot of the time their synergy doesn't quite work out the way it's supposed to. Um, in addition to that, the next mechanic you really want to handle with is going to be the time controls. Now, the way this is explained essentially is that you have a situation where, um, this doesn't have to be just like this, by the way. All you need is the following: a guard on a slope that gets killed from the direction that you want him to fall. Right? So, and here, basically, I have this, it's really janky, but the idea is that he pops up. You can do this with a grenader, by the way, really well. You can have it where their arm just sticks out, and so they can just shoot without really being that much of a threat. And when the person pops up and kills them, they fall down. Now, you want a corrosive cube here, usually, so you don't want the player to come down here, because you don't want to create a shortcut. Usually you'll have a block in this off, and that's one invisibility. And the thing is now if he doesn't have a bomb, what happens is that he'll come in through here and he'll sit here. However, if he has a self-destruct explosive, it'll actually kill this cube and allow the guard to patrol. Now this only works if you have the following. You need the mod for the guard that you use where it self-destructs, and then you need this so where you can make where you make a guard to respect the Holo cube. Okay, so until it's activated. If you don't have that, then the guards will ignore it, um, unless it's on second wave, of course. Um, that is the way to handle the timed. Um, that is where they handle the timed guard as well. You can do a lot of fiddling with this. You've probably seen a few times where they've fallen through and they've left. They use these self-destruct as like aerial denial bombs, but that's just an idea. There's also a couple more things you can do. Of course, you have the sneaky guy where he hides behind a Holo cube that's on second wave, and then whenever they get the gem at, he starts patrolling into the center. These are best done in groups of 2 or 3, so you can try to overwhelm them. Um, but it really depends on your base design, and it does take a lot of budget, so it's probably not really viable unless you're on at least dangerous, if not brutal. Okay. Um, so here's another thing. The last part we're gonna go over is layering. Okay, so normally there's a couple options you can do this with, but for example, a really good tip I'm gonna show you is just real quick is when you come up here, pretend this is a GMAT, right? So you come and grab it. Now a lot of players will put this on second stage. You don't actually want to do that because the default Holo cube reveal distance is 1 block. If you have it in such a way where there's a hallway, they don't really have that much way to dodge. Like you have like this cut off and there's no way for him to like rappel up. Can actually be very deadly. This can get you kills very easily unless you're very quick to react. Now it is becoming more common, so people are becoming able to react to it more consistently. Um, but there is a solid chance you can get kills. I get tons of kills this all the time. But I mean, the game's new, so we'll see how it shakes out here in a bit. But the idea is you have this holo cube down, you have like a bolt or incinerator or whatever have you behind here. And what happens is, as you grab this, now here's the bonus of it, is because it activates when they grab the GMAT, they may think it's second stage, but it's not. In fact, it's first stage. So when they approach it to grab it, it's already firing, it doesn't need to prep. So they're looking around, looking for traps to spawn, and this already pops. They're thinking they have a second or two to react. They don't. It kills them. And that can be done with bolt traps, other things like that. But there's also a couple other options I use, which are actually particularly deadly. So this is a kind of like setup you'll see a lot, where you'll have this slope round out here. And believe it or not, this is actually really, really good. So you have a couple different variations of this trap setup I like to use, but the key here really is utilizing blocks like the triangle blocks on a rotated side, because you can actually drag players through this gap. Like it's not like it's it actually has a hitbox that matches it. So when they come up and grab here, all of these will disappear. Now sometimes it is a little finicky, depending on exactly how people approach your base, stuff like that. So always make sure you test it. Have friends test it if you can. And they'll come up, these will pop, and this will start to drag them. Now augments are optional, of course. I like to, if you do use one, I prefer the one that's where it makes it so it shoots faster. Generally, because if they're reeled in, they're usually screwed. Most of the time, it's because they made a serious mistake. And so here's the beauty of it, though, is they come in here. Most players will panic swipe, and they'll get the one of the traps, and the other one will kill them. The incinerator is really important in this combination, because right now shields, like arc shields, are very common. And the thing is, if they get pulled in, the first thing they're going to do is arc shield. But here's the thing. Incinerators are capable of burning through an arc shield. It's not as if like it can ignore the arc shield. It lasts so long that the arc shield doesn't last long enough to actually save them. And no sword, like if they have an arc shield, they don't have two swords. They don't have enough swing time to really avoid it. They would have to have a heavy sword and arc shield, have everything both up, and then what would happen is they would get pulled, they would swing in, kill this as they get in, and they would try to shield the arc. And then they would fall into the acid. And there's lots of different ways I can pan out. There's lots of variations of this as well. I have one that has a tower and it comes up. That one gets people more of the falling than anything else. And of course, there's this variation as well, which eliminates the possibility of the heavy blade somehow cleaving everything. Where this will pull you in, the spike trap will kill you. The incinerator really comes in from this end. This one's a little bit less reliable sometimes if somehow this cube doesn't trigger. I have had that happen. But you could always put this on because it's between two other cubes. You could always put this on the eagle eye to help it to maybe be more consistent. And of course, you have the option as well of augmenting this further if you're having any other issues, where instead of having the incinerator there, you can have it up here, and if they fall down, you don't even have to have corrosive down here if you don't want to, and they'll get burned. Conversely, you can always have this down here, so if they propel down here knowing they can get through a cube and survive, which is possible by the way, they can get killed by a trap either up or below or on the sides. All in all, it's a very flexible setup. This gets a lot of people, and the beauty of it is the secret is to have multiple stacked cubes like here, where they think they're going to have cover, right? So, like in this area over here, so if they had, for example, let's say that they had what they believe to be a safe area, right? Is I wouldn't just have this cube, I would have this cube, and if it's on the right side, I would have this cube as well. So that way, or at the very least, I would have this where it's like this. So there's a lot more angle for it to drag. And believe it or not, if you have a hollow cube, even if it's not activated, if it can pull you through a hollow cube if it's not activated. The way it works is if the cube the impaler's on is active and it shoots at you, and it will pull you to it, even if it has to go through a hollow cube that isn't already active. That's part of the beauty of it, is they'll actually think they have cover when they don't. It's very similar to the trick with corrosive cubes and the seeking bolt trick as well. So what'll happen is for this one, the way it works is a player will activate a bolt shot, and they'll try to avoid it, right? And they'll try to avoid it by going this way. But this has an augment you can put on called Hunter, which makes it home. And if you put it through here, it'll actually go through the cube and kill you. That's pretty common. You'll see that occasionally. And that's just one of a bunch of different ways you can do to really manipulate players. The goal is, again, is you want them to do what you want them is you want to convince them to do things you want them to do, so that way you can kill them by making them go where they don't necessarily need to be. Um, Another example that would be like a long hallway where there's like a bolt down here, and they'll instinctively dodge, but this will be a block that kills them because it's an illusion block with the ooze on the bottom, right? And that's just one more example. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment or anything like that. Um, but there's a lot more designs, obviously, and if you want, I can send you. I can do a replay where I go through my own base where I actually implement pretty much all of these, and that averages around like between 3 and 5 KD. Considering it's a small normal base, it's pretty good. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.